Hi, thanks for checking out another one of our videos, and hopefully this is going to help somebody out understanding how these things work. And if you've got one of these units you want to get worked on, you're welcome to send it here. We'll give you a free quote, and we do 18-month warranties on the repairs that we do to any unit that we work on, and we work on any brand that you can think of. Um, Down below in the description area of the video, there's links to our websites and everything. But there's fencerfixer.com. That's our website, and we also work on cattle scales and low bars as well for different brands and stuff. But I've already worked on this one and got it going, everything for the customer. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Kind of a review of it. I really like these M1000s. They were around for quite a while, about 12 or 13 years. They sold this one maybe 14 years, from about 2005 to about 2017 or so. So, 11, 12, 13 years or so they were around. Every once in a while you can still find a new one either on eBay, or maybe at a local store might still have a used one, or not used one, like a new old stock or one that they bought and then it's just sat for a while before they finally sold it. But they're pretty reliable units for the most part. I mean, they do have problems over time. The earlier versions were not as good as the new ones are. So most of the ones that we get in have got a little age to them. They're 6, 8, 10 years old, some of them. And but the new parts for them are a lot better than what their old parts were. So you put a some good parts, new parts into an older unit, it really freshens them up and makes them a lot more reliable than what they were earlier on. So that's usually what we do when we work on these. We use the newer parts on them, and it just really increases the power output and voltage output. Seems to be a lot better. Um, so if you don't own one of these and kind of curious about it, we're going to talk about. I'm going to power it on. It's got a little power light there. There's a little check mark right by my thumb here. That's just LED, lights up a little check mark. That's just tells you, hey, the power's on. Sometimes these little bulbs in there will get shifted up or down, left or right, and it won't quite be able to see that check mark. But the unit's still lighting up something, and okay, it's fine. I've just got this bulb's either broken or it's slipped a little, offset a little bit. It's not right, a little hole's as big around as that. So if it's off, an eighth of an inch, this much, then it won't light that up. Then over here you've got a uh, bar graph, our line, light graph. We're going to call. Also has a digital readout on there. Tells you how many kV it's putting out at the terminals. And this unit will change on the fly voltage and these lights depending on what kind of load you have on the fence. So if you walk by one day and this shows 9, and you walk by the next, a week later and it shows 4, okay, something's dragging it down. Now as this number falls, these lights won't go up as high. So it may go into the upper green when it's like 7, 8, 9 kV. If it's in the 6 range, it might be down in here. If it's in the 4 range, it might be in the yellow. If it's probably less than 4 or less than 3, it's probably down in the reds. So it tells you real quick at a glance, just by walking by, you can see what it's doing just by looking at it. You don't have to go and test the fence unless you want to. Now, if you've got one of these and the charger, you walk by and it shows 5 or 4 or 3, you're like, okay, I must have a short in the fence. One thing you want to do before you go and start traveling around the fence and looking for a problem that may or may not be there is go to the unit and unplug it and loosen up your fencing ground knobs and pull them off and plug the unit in, and it's run it by itself. If the voltage shows like 4 and all of a sudden you plug it in with nothing hooked up to it and it jumps all the way to 7, 8, 9 kV like it shows here, then okay, the charger's probably okay. I probably have a problem in the fence. But if you plug it in all by itself and it still shows pretty low, then the charger's got an issue and it's not the fence. The fence probably does fine. There's a problem on the inside. So if the number stays low with nothing hooked up to it, all by itself, no fence, no ground, and it still stays low, then you've got problems inside here. And these can be fixed. I mean, all the parts are made for them. I mean, you can get knobs, terminal bolts. You can get even a front case. You get this orange strap thing if you wanted it. You can get power cords for them. All the guts, you can get the guts for it. So everything's available for it. So they're not a throwaway device by any means. I mean, that made them in 2 or 3 years. It's 2020. It's probably been 2016, 17 since they made these, somewhere in that range. And so they, there's still parts available for them. There'll probably be parts around for a handful of years to come. I sold a bunch of these. Gallagher sold hundreds of thousands of them. I mean, they're probably one of their best-selling chargers when it comes to the plug-in models of this generation. They sold a lot of them because they're not too big, not too small. They're a 10 stored joule units, where Gallagher gets their model numbers from, is the joules, and they rate their units in stored joules. So that's what I want to talk about next. Is we're going to test this unit. This meter I've got here is tester, fault finder tester, made by this. This company doesn't make it, but they sell it. It will tell me what the output joules of a unit is, but we have to put a load on it to see what the output joules are. Because on any unit, any brand, it doesn't matter what brand it is, any low impedance unit, on a clean fence, there's hardly any actual power on. I mean, there's voltage on the fence, but there's hardly any joules shocking anything because there's nothing out there touching the fence. The joules kind of ramps itself up to shock the fence harder whenever it feels something touching it, whether it's animal, grass, a person, loose wire to a T-post, anything like that, any kind of short, anything touched between fence and ground, that will cause the number to fall, but it also causes the joules to kick in to really shock that fence. So let me turn it off real quick. Pull the knobs off. Power it back on. Turn this tester on. I have to turn this light off. Maybe get rid of the glare. See, this tester shows 10 kV, 10,000 volts. We're switching over to the joules. It's actually, there's not a decimal point showing, but it's actually, it says 18J, but that's actually point. Oops. Turn it on again. My power cord came unplugged. Yeah, it says 19 joules, but that's actually not 19 joules, that's 0.19 joules. So there's hardly any power coming out of it when it's running clean and clear on a clean fence or a little resistance from the fence. Now, for us to read the joules of what it's won't be the max joules of 10 or of whatever the output joules is, because output joules is lower number than stored joules, because Gallagher rates their units in stored joules, which is the reading at the capacitor, not at the terminals. The joules at the terminals is what you actually are getting, which is your output joules. So it's like horsepower in an engine. If an engine's rated for, or horsepower on a vehicle, on a car or whatever, engine horsepower at the crank, basically that's your stored joules. Horsepower at your wheels is your output joules, because there's always a loss. You might have a 350 horsepower engine, but at the wheels it might be 290 or something like that. There's always loss between what it's got at the unit and what it gets at the terminals. So now we're going to I'm going to have to hopefully be able to touch this wire that's hanging there. This will lower the number down as well. See, we got 150 ohm load on it, and which is pretty heavy load, and it's dragged it down to about 4 kV, and the numbers, or the lights are in the yellow. So now I'm going to test this unit again. Turn it on. We're going to go across here, and I can do the joules yet. I'm going to see what kind of voltage reading I'm getting. This meter shows 4.4. 4.4 kV. Switch it over to joules. So you're reading 5 joules, so it has a 5 joule output, is what this thing's putting out. 5 joule output on a 10 joule unit. So You know, that goes for any brand. Every brand's got store jewels. Every brand's got output jewels. And output jewels is what you get the terminals. Store jewels is what's on the inside before it gets to the terminals. Um, so that's why you can't always compare apples to apples from brand to brand, because you know their jewels that they're giving you could either be the output jewels or the stored jewels, and there's always loss between one and the other. So it's between 30 and 60% loss between the capacitor and its stored jewels, what it's building up and putting out, to the output jewels going through the transformer, the resistance of the board to the terminals. Always loss there. So this one, based on the 150 ohm load, has about a 50% loss of power between the capacitor and by the time it gets through here. And that goes for any brand. You can have another brand like, say, like a Stay Fix 18i, right? 18,000i. It's 18 output joule, but it's probably like 25 stored, 27, 28 stored, something like that. So it's got 28 stored joules, but it's got 18 output, for example. So there's 10 or 12 joules that it loses between stored and output. So every brand's got a loss because there's a transformer. It depends on the quality of the transformer and how efficient it is. So some are more efficient than others, and even then, some of the efficient transformers are not very good. They may be efficient at getting you the most power to your terminals, but they don't hold up very well. And there's other ones that are not very efficient but will last a lifetime. Like these transformers are 50% loss basically, but the quality of the transformer is top notch. I've never had to replace a transformer in one of these. Very rare. We've worked on hundreds and thousands of these M1000s over the last 15 plus years, and I've replaced like two or three, and those were from lightning damage. I never had to replace one just because it's very rare to go bad. So pretty reliable unit. But that's about it on this one. I mean, it's a good solid unit. I really like them, and we do get them in for repair. I don't mind working on them, but the quality of the unit seems to be very well built. Like I said, the earlier ones from about 8, 9, 10 years ago weren't as good as the later versions were from like 5, 6 years ago. And when we get one of these in of an older variation, we install the newer style parts into them, which makes them a better built unit, higher output voltage, and a lot harder snap to them when they do shock. So I like them. So if you got one of these Gallagher W110s, if you want to send it in for repair, we'll be happy to look at it. Free quotes on it. But until next time, to another video of how one works, we will see you guys later on. And remember to subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up button. Bye bye.